Many individuals often act without considering the potential outcomes of their actions, especially when it comes to committing crimes, regardless of the severity. However, the legal system is unwavering when it comes to meting out consequences for those who have harmed society, depriving others of their rights, safety, property, and even their lives. This mom was in court for $300 parking fines, but then her daughter told the judge she was starving.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, now we have to make a decision.
And what's perplexing is that even individuals who have experienced incarceration don't always hesitate to break the law again. Many of them rely on the hope of avoiding detection and punishment. What drives people to overlook the consequences of their actions, no matter how grave? Join us on this journey as we unravel the 20 of the most incredible moments in court. Number 20. Trey Raford. In 2015, Salahuddin and Jit Mood were working together, delivering pizzas in Lexington, Kentucky, when tragedy struck. Salahuddin, a 22-year-old aspiring artist, was brutally murdered during his final delivery of the night. This shocking event sent ripples of grief through the entire local Muslim community. Salahuddin's father, a well-known figure in the community as the principal of a local Islamic academy, faced the heartbreaking reality that his son's life had been cut short. Two others, led by Trey Alexander Raford, attacked and robbed him in a hate crime. Raford, after pleading guilty to complicity in murder, complicity in robbery, and attempted tampering with evidence, was sentenced to 31 years in prison. Despite the tragedy, an extraordinary act of forgiveness unfolded in the courtroom. Dr. Abdul Munimud, Salahuddin's father, offered Trey Raford his forgiveness in a heart-wrenching scene. Dr. Munimud not only forgave Trey on behalf of Salahuddin and his mother, but also shared a powerful message about forgiveness being the greatest gift or charity in Islam. In a surprising turn of events, Trey Raford expressed remorse and apologized to Dr. Munimud, the grief-stricken father. The courtroom witnessed a heartwarming scene as the two men embraced, tears streaming down their faces. This poignant moment of forgiveness and reconciliation went viral on the internet, earning widespread love and respect from the masses. Number 19. Jennifer Mee. At 2010, Jennifer Mee, widely known as the Hiccup Girl, due to her prolonged bout of hiccups, found herself in a shocking turn of events. Accused of first-degree murder, the story unfolds with a 22-year-old man she had encountered online. Deceptively, she led him to an abandoned house where, accompanied by two friends, they carried out a robbery that tragically resulted in the man's death. This unfortunate incident, governed by Florida law, held Jennifer accountable on par with the one who physically pulled the trigger. The weapon of choice was a caliber handgun, and the victim, Shannon Griffin, endured 4 gunshot wounds. Swiftly, law enforcement arrested Jennifer Mee, along with her accomplices Laron Raford and Lamont Newton, mere hours after the crime. Sergeant Skinner of the St. Petersburg Police Department disclosed that May and her partners confessed to their involvement in this heinous act. Jennifer faced first-degree murder charges and, following a jury trial, was found guilty. The case garnered significant attention due to her prior fame as the Hiccup Girl, an international sensation in 2007 at the age of 15. Jennifer's uncontrollable hiccups had captivated audiences and landed her on various television shows. Interestingly, her hiccup troubles ceased after receiving treatment from Dr. Bob Lindy. As the verdict of life imprisonment without parole was read, Jennifer, once hopeful for a lesser charge, broke down in tears. The unexpected outcome left her grappling with the reality of the severe sentence handed down by the jury. Number 18. Teen smiles. In a courtroom in Washington County, Michigan, as he faced the consequences of his involvement in the tragic fate of 18-year-old Ann Arbor resident Jordan Klee, Dan wore a smile on his face, smiling and even laughing during sentencing. Contrary to the usual scenario where individuals express remorse and sorrow when pleading guilty, Dan took a different route. He didn't shed a tear or show any regret. Instead, when given the chance to address the court, he casually stated, "I'll be home soon." and reassured his family that he loved them. It's a stark contrast to the norm, where offenders often express sorrow and remorse when facing the families of their victims. Rather than acknowledging the gravity of the situation, Dan chose to mock Jordan's grieving family by confidently assuring his own family that everything would be okay. This audacious display shocked the judge who, in his over 2 decades of prosecuting, had never hesitated to accept a sentence agreement. However, witnessing Dan's nonchalant attitude, the judge was tempted to reject the agreement and take the case to trial. Despite the judge's reservations, Jordan's family didn't want the additional pain of a trial. Consequently, the judge sentenced Danter to second degree, with an expected prison term of up to 50 years. The whole courtroom experience was a perplexing mix of emotions, leaving everyone, including the judge, appalled at the seeming lack of remorse from the person being sentenced. Number 17. Hollywood mogul sentenced. In 2020, Harvey Weinstein, once a major player in Hollywood, experienced a stunning downfall. He was found guilty of rape and sexual assault, a verdict that marked a significant shift in his status. Before this, more than 80 women had come forward, accusing Weinstein of sexual misconduct. Their revelations fueled the global #MeToo movement, triggering important discussions about abuse and power imbalances within the entertainment industry. Throughout the trial, Weinstein adamantly denied all claims of non-consensual acts. However, on February 24, 2020, he was convicted of a criminal sexual act in the 1st degree and rape in the 3rd degree. The courtroom scene captured his reaction to the sentencing, 23 years in prison, a moment of shock and disbelief. Weinstein, once esteemed and powerful, appeared bewildered as he was led away in handcuffs. The footage from the courtroom depicted a man seemingly incapable of grasping the gravity of his actions, or the fact that he was finally facing consequences. This reaction was not just a personal fall from grace for Weinstein. It represented a crucial moment of justice for all victims of sexual assault. The images were broadcast globally, symbolizing accountability for those who abuse their power. Number 16. Convicted Officer. In 2018, Amber Geiger became synonymous with controversy as she, a Dallas police officer, found herself at the center of a tragic incident. Botham Jean, an unarmed black man, lost his life when Geiger fatally shot him in what she claimed was a mistaken belief that she was in her apartment. The aftermath of this incident triggered widespread public outcry, demanding justice for the senseless act. Fast forward to October 1st, 2019, a pivotal day when Geiger's fate was decided. She was ultimately found guilty of murder and subsequently handed a 10-year prison sentence. The courtroom, a stage for the unfolding drama, captured a moment etched in the minds of many. As the verdict echoed through the room, the cameras focused on Geiger. Struggling to contain her emotions, her face betrayed a mix of shock and despair, perhaps encapsulating the weight of her actions. This snapshot of Geiger's reaction underwent intense scrutiny from both the public and the media. Many found it challenging to empathize with her display of emotion, considering the gravity of her crime and the tragic consequences that ensued. However, some interpreted her tears as a glimmer of remorse. Irrespective of public opinion, the courtroom footage served as a poignant reminder of the human element present in every legal proceeding. Number 15. Franklin Williams. Franklin is a guy who just couldn't keep quiet, especially when adults were supposed to talk. In a Cleveland courtroom back in 2018, Franklin Williams, facing charges like aggravated robbery and kidnapping, stepped into the legal arena. The judge, trying to keep things on track, found himself facing a chatterbox challenge. Franklin, ignoring warnings, kept on yakking. The judge, fed up with the charade, took a bold step. He ordered deputies to seal Franklin's lips with red tape to restore order. Franklin wasn't pleased with this unusual muzzle, and as he left the courtroom, he started spouting off about freedom of speech, duct tape, and even threw in a hashtag. The media caught wind of this, and public opinion went wild. The judge, sensing the uproar, decided to backtrack, apologizing for the unconventional silencing method and recusing himself from the case. Franklin was convicted of 3 armed robberies related to the duct tape incident. Proclaiming his humanity, Franklin insisted, "I am not an animal, I'm a man." Ironically, the judge, who had silenced him with duct tape, handed down a shorter sentence than the following one. Franklin now serves his 33-year term behind bars. Number 14. Antonio Barau. At the age of 14, Antonio faced a grim fate as he received a sentence of at least 36 years behind bars. His conviction stemmed from a shocking crime, the brutal murder of his 78-year-old great-grandmother. Antonio, accompanied by his friend Nathan, hatched a plan to rob money from Barbara Olson's residence. Their ill-conceived scheme took a nightmarish turn, as they not only succeeded in robbing the elderly woman, but also subjected her to a merciless assault using a hatchet and a hammer. The sheer horror of such a heinous act committed by teenagers and the fact that Antonio targeted his flesh and blood boggles the mind. When Antonio faced his sentencing, the weight of his actions appeared to crush him. Tears streamed down his face as he grappled with the severity of the penalty imposed upon him. Unable to articulate his thoughts, he handed over his statement to his defense attorney, who too struggled to hold back tears while conveying Antonio's words.
An attack, I guess to kill.
The presiding judge, Timothy Von Akron, expressed the unprecedented nature of the crime during sentencing, noting that in his 24 years on the bench, he had never encountered anything comparable. Antonio, facing the prospect of almost 5 decades behind bars, would reach eligibility for release when he approaches 50 years old. Number 13, Judge Death of Court. Tracy Hunter, a former judge from Cincinnati, found herself entangled in a legal web after being convicted of misusing her judicial authority to assist her brother. The repercussions of her actions unfolded dramatically as she was handed a 6-month jail sentence. The courtroom erupted in chaos upon the pronouncement of her punishment, leading to her removal from an Ohio courtroom, adding a surreal twist to the proceedings. To compound matters, a fervent supporter of Hunter was also apprehended. Hunter's transgressions centered on her efforts to secure her brother's employment in Hamilton County, an act that ultimately resulted in her conviction for having an unlawful interest in a public contract, an offense classified as a 4th-degree felony. Special Prosecutor Scott Crosswell asserted that the severity of her actions warranted the 6-month incarceration. Retired Judge Norbert Nadell presided over the sentencing, aligning with Crosswell's stance on the matter. It was emphasized that Hunter, by choosing to operate according to her own set of rules, had brought about the circumstances that led to her predicament. The courtroom responded with applause, underscoring the gravity of the situation. Hunter's defense, led by attorney David Singleton, painted a poignant picture of the aftermath of the conviction. Singleton highlighted the profound losses suffered by Hunter, encompassing her judicial position, law license, peace of mind, and financial stability. Despite the dire circumstances, Hunter maintained her innocence, prompting Singleton to declare his intention to file a motion to dismiss the case, firmly believing in her wrongful conviction. Number 12. Upset Man. Cameron Herron experienced a profound mix of sorrow and disbelief when he received a 24-year prison sentence. This severe judgment followed an ill-fated incident in 2018 when, as a teenager, he engaged in a reckless race along Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa, Florida. Behind the wheel of a Mustang, Cameron impulsively challenged his 17-year-old friend, who was driving a Nissan Altima. Little did he anticipate the tragic turn of events that would unfold. Accelerating to a staggering 102 miles per hour, Cameron attempted to avoid colliding with his friend, leading to a devastating crash. The consequences were dire, as his car struck 24-year-old Jessica Reisinger Albinault, who was peacefully strolling with her almost 2-year-old daughter Lilia in a stroller. The impact proved fatal. In the legal aftermath, both Cameron and his friend John Bariano pleaded guilty to vehicular homicide. While John received a 6-year sentence, Cameron faced a much harsher 24-year imprisonment. Cameron's defense attorney, John Fitzgibbons, argued that the sentence was unduly severe, suggesting that a more fitting duration would have been between 10 to 12 years. Despite the plea, the judge opted not to reduce the sentence. leaving Cameron with a lengthy period of incarceration. Number 11. George Floyd's death. The tragic passing of George Floyd in May 2020, caused by the actions of Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, ignited a wave of global protests against both police brutality and systemic racism. The distressing video capturing Chauvin pressing his knee onto Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes circulated widely, fueling public anger and a fervent demand for justice. Chauvin's trial, extensively covered and observed both nationally and internationally, reached its climax on April 20, 2021, when he was declared guilty of second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. The moment of Chauvin's reaction to the verdict mirrored the widespread sharing of Floyd's tragic demise. In stark contrast to his composed demeanor during the trial, Chauvin displayed genuine shock upon hearing the guilty verdict. His eyes widened, and a swift glance around the room replaced the nonchalant attitude he had maintained during Floyd's fatal arrest. This reaction went beyond an individual response. It symbolized the broader significance of the trial, a powerful reminder of the long-overdue demand for justice and accountability within law enforcement. Number 10. Gymnastics doctor. Larry Nassar, the former doctor for the United States of America, gymnastics national team, and an osteopathic physician at Michigan State University, found himself at the center of one of the most significant sexual abuse scandals in the history of sports. More than 150 women, including several Olympic gymnasts, bravely stepped forward to share their harrowing experiences, accusing Nassar of sexually abusing them under the pretext of medical treatment. Throughout the trial, Nassar displayed a range of reactions, but it was his response to the sentencing that captured the most attention. On January 24, 2018, Nassar received a severe sentence of 40 to 175 years in federal prison. As the judge delivered the verdict, Nassar's head lowered, his face reflecting a mixture of disbelief and remorse. Just days before, during the victim impact statements, Nassar had turned to the courtroom, acknowledging the profound emotional impact the survivor's words had on him, confessing that they had shaken him to his core. The footage of Nassar's reaction to the victim's statements and subsequent sentencing served as a stark reminder of the enormity of his crimes and the profound suffering endured by his victims. Number 9. Anthony Rodriguez. Back in 2012 in Bakersfield, California, a man named Anthony Rodriguez faced serious accusations of sexually assaulting a woman. Rodriguez vehemently professed his innocence during the court proceedings, adamantly denying any wrongdoing. Despite his claims, DNA evidence decisively pointed to his involvement in the crime, leading to his prompt arrest. Approximately 3 months later, the court rendered its verdict, finding Rodriguez guilty of the heinous act. The sentence handed down was a staggering 25 years to life in prison. Unsurprisingly, Rodriguez's immediate reaction mirrored the typical response one might anticipate in such a situation. He insisted that the judgment was unjust, adding to the drama unfolding in the courtroom. Not content with merely expressing his disagreement, Rodriguez escalated the tension by unleashing a barrage of curse words directed at the judge and bailiffs. He defiantly rose from his seat, engaging in a heated argument before being firmly instructed to sit back down. Rodriguez, no stranger to a history of violence, had not previously been involved in sexual offenses. The gravity of the sentence devastated Rodriguez's family, who were left heartbroken by the severity of the punishment. Despite their genuine belief that this was Rodriguez's first foray into sexual misconduct and should warrant a more lenient sentence, the court remained steadfast in its decision, unmoved by the pleas for leniency. Unfortunately, Rodriguez's vehement reaction further tarnished his image in the media, overshadowing any sympathy that may have otherwise existed. Number 8. Tiffany Moss. In Lawrenceville, Georgia, a tragic and heart-wrenching incident unfolded, centered around Tiffany Nicole Moss, a woman who subjected her 10-year-old stepdaughter, Imani Gabrielle Moss, to a horrifying fate. She starved her to death. The repercussions of this heinous crime extended beyond the confines of the courtroom, triggering significant reforms in Georgia's child welfare system. Tiffany's egregious actions garnered widespread media attention, shedding light on the severe abuse that Imani endured for several years leading up to her untimely demise on October 28, 2013. Shockingly, at the time of her death, Imani weighed a mere 15 kilograms, equivalent to the weight of an average toddler. In 2019, Tiffany faced the judicial consequences of her malevolent deeds, being convicted of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of first-degree cruelty to children, and concealing the death of another. The court, recognizing the gravity of her crimes, handed down a sentence of death plus 20 years. The severity of the punishment underscored the absence of leniency in a case that left everyone involved feeling a profound sense of sickness. The courtroom scene during her sentencing was chilling. Tiffany stood alone at her table, devoid of a defense attorney, displaying an eerie composure. There was an absence of remorse as she silently nodded, awaiting the conclusion of the judge's solemn pronouncement. Number 7. Father attacks daughters. In a courtroom in Detroit, Michigan, a harrowing tale unfolded as Jamila's mother, Jasmine Gordon, and Jasmine's husband, Clifford Thomas, brought Jamila to the hospital in 2015 after she had ceased breathing. The couple insisted she had fallen, leading to a loss of consciousness. However, experts countered, declaring it a homicide and attributing Jamila's injuries to physical abuse inflicted by Clifford. Separate trials ensued, resulting in the couple being found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. In a unique courtroom occurrence, they faced the judge together to spare the victim from the ordeal of providing statements twice. Rather than expressing his emotions verbally, Jamila's father opted for a more visceral approach. In a courtroom confrontation, he lashed out at Clifford, delivering a punch while Clifford was seated in a distinct yellow jail outfit. The sheriff's deputies had to swiftly intervene to separate the two. Although Dwayne, Jamila's father, was instructed to leave the courtroom, he avoided contempt of court charges. In the aftermath, Clifford received a sentencing of 6 to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter, along with an additional 1 to 2 years for obstructing a police officer and resisting arrest. Jasmine, on the other hand, was handed a sentence of 7 to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter and a staggering 14 to 25 years for first-degree child abuse, acknowledging her role as an accomplice in the tragic events. Number 6. Mother lunges at man. At 2016, Elizabeth Marie Wren found herself in the depths of sorrow as a mother mourning the tragic loss of her 2 teenage sons. Maurice Gordon, age 16, and Larry Aldway, aged 14, from Kentucky, were discovered behind an abandoned house. Allegedly, 4 individuals were involved, with 3 accepting plea deals, and the 4th, Bryce Rhodes, pleading not guilty. If convicted, Bryce faced severe penalties. When Elizabeth confronted Bryce in the courtroom, the emotional intensity reached a breaking point. Overwhelmed by grief, she couldn't contain her emotions and physically lunged at him, passionately labeling him a demon. Security had to step in to restrain and remove her from the courtroom. Outside, Elizabeth expressed her anguish, insisting that Bryce had callously laughed at her during the proceedings. In her distressed state, she repeatedly called for her imprisonment and questioned why she wasn't allowed to confront Bryce herself, emphasizing his alleged sickness. Elizabeth's family was resolute in their pursuit of justice, advocating for Bryce to receive a life sentence or a similarly severe penalty for the heart-wrenching loss they endured. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. This mom was in court for $300 parking fines, but then her daughter told the judge she was starving. There once lived a determined single mother named Lily. She worked 2 jobs to provide for her daughter, Emily, and their tiny apartment felt like a haven amidst the chaos of the city. One fateful day, as Lily hurriedly parked her car near the courthouse, she didn't notice the ominous red sign warning of the no parking zone. Running late for her second job, she dashed towards the courthouse, oblivious to the accumulating parking fines that would soon come back to haunt her. Days turned into weeks, and the city's relentless parking enforcers swarmed around Lily's car like vultures. The $300 parking fines accumulated, casting a dark shadow over Lily's already precarious financial situation. Desperate and unable to pay, Lily found herself in the very courthouse where she had once sought justice for others. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Lily, clad in worn-out clothes and clutching her last paycheck, stood before the stern-faced judge. Just as the judge prepared to pass the judgment, the courtroom doors opened and Emily rushed in. With a fiery determination in her eyes, she approached the judge and pleaded. Her mom was in court for $300 in parking fines, but then her daughter was starving. My mom isn't a criminal, she's doing everything she can to provide for us, but we're struggling. The judge raised an eyebrow, interested by this unexpected turn of events. Emily continued, her voice unwavering. The reason my mom parked in that forbidden zone was because she was rushing to her second job. We're barely making ends meet, and these fines are pushing us to the brink of desperation. The judge, moved by Emily's sincerity, decided to offer an unconventional resolution. The fines will be waived on one condition, the judge declared, eyes fixed on Lily. You must attend a financial literacy program, learn to manage your finances, and in doing so, break free from this cycle of hardship. Lily, tears streaming down her face, nodded in gratitude. What are your thoughts on this tale? Let us have your opinion in the comments below. Number 5. Michael Madison. Michael Madison, a notorious serial killer hailing from East Cleveland, Ohio. This sinister individual has left a trail of terror, having been linked to at least 3 heinous murders, all of which claimed the lives of innocent women. In the legal realm, Madison faced the consequences of his gruesome actions. His trial unfolded on April 2016, culminating in a definitive guilty verdict on May 5, 2015. The jury, deliberating for less than a day, unanimously found him guilty on multiple charges, including 3 counts of sexually motivated aggravated murder, 3 counts of kidnapping, sexual assault, attempted sexual assault, 3 counts of abuse of a corpse, and the possession of a weapon under disability. During the trial, Madison's demeanor only added to the horror. Far from expressing remorse, he was observed smirking and appearing smug as he glanced at the judge. This callous attitude did not go unnoticed, particularly by Van Terry, the grieving father of the victim. Overwhelmed by rage and grief, Van Terry lunged at Madison in the courtroom, prompting deputies to swiftly intervene and escort him out. Surprisingly, he was released without facing any charges. The lack of remorse and the brazen demeanor of the convicted killer left a lasting mark on the courtroom, underscoring the gravity of the crimes and the pain inflicted on the victims' families. Number 4. Texting suicide case. Michelle Carter's case is truly one of a kind, stirring up intense debate and capturing public attention. The story revolves around her involvement in the 2014 suicides of her boyfriend, Conrad Roy III, making it a highly controversial legal saga. At the tender age of 17, Carter found herself facing trial, accused of actively encouraging Roy to end his own life through a series of text messages and phone calls. The court, during the trial, delved into the explicit messages Carter had sent to Roy, explicitly urging him to commit suicide. In her defense, Carter's legal team argued that she grappled with a history of mental health issues and was under the influence of medication that could have clouded her judgment. The trial unfolded, and on June 2017, the verdict was delivered. Carter was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The moment the verdict was announced, Carter's emotional reaction was evident. She visibly broke down in tears, captured on footage that portrayed a young woman overwhelmed by the harsh reality of her actions and the profound consequences they carried. This case became a pivotal moment in legal history, signaling a paradigm shift in how words and digital communication could be perceived as potent and even lethal weapons. Number 3. Drug cartel leader. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, a name etched in the annals of the global drug trade, was not just a mere figurehead of the Sinaloa cartel. Renowned for his cutthroat strategies, sprawling network, and Houdini-like prison escapes, Guzman's capture and extradition to the United States set the stage for a gripping and widely publicized trial. Within the confines of the courtroom, Guzman's once unassailable persona as a formidable drug lord began to crumble. Prosecutors fully presented an avalanche of evidence, a legal arsenal that included testimonies from over 50 witnesses, surveillance videos, intercepted phone calls, and a chilling replica of a murder room. On February 12, 2019, the verdict resounded with the weight of justice. Guzman was found guilty on all 10 counts, ranging from drug trafficking and money laundering to involvement in heinous murders. As the judge delivered the damning judgment, Guzman's stoic facade gave way to genuine surprise and confusion, caught on camera for the world to witness. Once an ominous figure feared and seemingly untouchable, the drug lord found himself rendered powerless by the inexorable force of the rule of law. His bewildered reaction, immortalized in courtroom footage, served as a poignant departure from his criminal mystique. Number 2. Suspect escapes. In 2021, a dramatic incident unfolded involving a 28-year-old named Eddie Villalobos. He was accused of the murder of Artemio Guzman Olvera, a 33-year-old individual. At that time, Eddie found himself during legal proceedings at the Washington County Courthouse. It was the year 2023, and the jury selection process was underway. Eddie, however, seemed unwilling to patiently await the unfolding consequences of his alleged actions. Seizing an opportune moment, immediately after the removal of his leg shackles and handcuffs as per standard procedure, Eddie sprang into action. With remarkable speed, he darted out of the courtroom, navigated through the hallways of the first floor, and swiftly exited the courthouse through a staff-only entrance. Deputies promptly initiated a pursuit, but Eddie proved elusive, managing to evade capture for a staggering 2 hours. Despite the police's efforts, which included spotting Eddie twice and engaging in foot chases, he continued to elude them. The pursuit escalated, involving the deployment of drones, collaboration between 2 local police departments, and the utilization of K-9 units. Ultimately, a crucial tip from a resident in an apartment complex led law enforcement to Eddie's location. Before this daring escape, Eddie was already undergoing trial for a fatal stabbing and another incident that left a man in critical condition. His audacious evasion added a new set of charges to the list of allegations against him. Number 1. Locked away forever. Gunman. A Colorado judge delivered a stern and resolute judgment on James Egan Holmes, a 27-year-old graduate student. James, the perpetrator of the Aurora movie theater massacre, was handed down a sentence that seemed to mark the end of any possibility of him ever stepping into society as a free man again. The judge, Carlos A. Samor Jr., orchestrated a sentencing that included multiple life terms and an astonishing number of years in prison, 3,318 to be precise. This harsh penalty was imposed for the devastating act that claimed 12 lives and left 70 others wounded. Judge Samor emphasized the determination to ensure that James Holmes would never again roam freely among society. In a move that captured the gravity of the situation, the judge declared that parole for James was out of the question. Prosecutor George Broschler, highlighting the severity of the case, asserted that this sentencing ranked among the longest in United States history. Despite efforts from James's defense team to portray him as a victim of mental illness, the jury firmly rejected the insanity defense. The gravity of the judgment resonated as one of the most severe in the annals of United States legal history. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.